Hello, hello, and welcome back to the Attract and Stand Out podcast. I'm your host, Darlene Hawley, and I am so glad you're here. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy lives to listen to the podcast and to join us here. I have an amazing guest today, and I am so honored to have her here with you. I have Keasha Lee EN-JEH. Oh, and I totally know I just blew her last name again, even though I just practiced it. But she is a messaging mentor, a copywriter, and founder and CEO of Striking Statements. She is also the creator of the Embody Your Message Masterclass and course. Keasha's mission is to help service-based, social conscious entrepreneurs and businesses clearly convey what they stand for, who they help, and why what they have to offer is needed right now. I absolutely love Keasha's message, and we have very similar interests when it comes to our businesses. So I'm excited to dive in today's conversation. Keasha, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Darlene. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm so glad and honored to have you here. Thank you so much again for taking time to come on. I know we're going to have some fun because, like I was saying, we have a similar mission when it comes to the work that we do and the way that we love to support our clients. So I know we're going to be able to have a lot of fun today in the conversation. To get us started, I love to just kind of check in. Like life it's been a year. So how are you doing?
That's a loaded question, but no, overall, I'm doing great. Life inevitably has shifted, and fortunately, good things have come from it in my business and the way that I have done my own inner work. Being in a quarantine gives you the opportunity to really look at what's important, what's bullcrap. It gives you perspective. This whole pandemic has definitely given us the opportunity to look at our lives, our interactions with others, how we show up in a different way. And so that's been a really beautiful thing for me. I do have a teenage daughter who is 17, and she's senior year, so that's been difficult. It's been difficult. And even though she's in a charter school, and so we have done more of an independent study pre-pandemic anyway. It's been a challenge, but we're working through it, and overall we're still here. Yeah.
I can totally understand where you're coming from as a mom too. And I can't even imagine though, like senior year, like all the feels that would come up with some of those important milestones that we know we had when we went to school. And then she's been looking forward to it, I'm sure. And it's shifted so many different things. I know even last year, my nephew had graduated from high school, and then we had a couple friends who did, and like we were planning all these big parties, and it's like, wait, how do we do that? How do we celebrate and still honor them even though it's been like a wild year and the
Right.
schedule is so different. So sending you so much love around that piece because I can only imagine your mama heart.
Yeah, it's
But yeah,
definitely.
and it's been such a great, like, so many good things have come from this year. I feel like too, like what you were saying, like that chance to really like realign with ourselves and figure out what's important, what's not important. um, I was talking with somebody a couple weeks ago, and they were talking about how they don't like the word busy, and they're trying to like take that word out of their vocabulary because they felt like they used to be so busy all the time. And like with the pandemic and life slowing down a little bit, they're like, oh, like I can actually see like what things I should be focusing on and are actually making the impacts that I want to versus the things that I was just doing because I felt like I had to, or because it felt like something I should be doing. And
Right.
she was mentioning like how she was, stepping into the things that she wanted to do and not focusing as much anymore on those things that didn't matter. And I was like, yeah, I was like, I feel like so much more quality time, like with the family. And so like really aligning our values back to who we are has
Hmm.
come from this year.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And that's where, if you're willing to look and get honest with yourself, then it can be a really beautiful thing. Not that any of it can be easy or is easy. I think development, growth, it's not easy. Getting outside of your comfort zone. Hello, it's called comfort because it feels a bit better than discomfort. But in the end, the comfort tends to get uncomfortable too, right? So it's a matter of what kind of pain are you willing to hang out with.
Yeah.
The pain, the pain of staying where you are when there's more versus the pain of the unknown and doing the things that you're not used to.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And listening to that little like inkling in your tummy that's like, ooh, I can do something different, or I can do something totally off the beaten path of maybe where I was headed before, and they
Yeah.
can experiment and like feel into like what they want to accomplish and what they want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Like I know that's something I love to listen to. I'm like, wait a minute, I want to learn more about this. And then it's like I buy the books and I study the information or I listen to more podcasts about it. And then all of a sudden, like it's like you're not that you're reinventing yourself, but like a piece of you kind of gets reinvented during that process and you can really stand in it.
Definitely. Definitely. I sent out in an email, a recent email I sent out to my list. It was about you're going to have to let go. Like nothing changes without you. And so there is a process in our evolution of letting things go, letting things die, parts of ourselves to go in order to step fully into who we're becoming. And so, and that's a big part of my message too, with messaging and helping people, so
Yeah.
it's all about life really and living a fully expressed life.
Yeah.
That's the key for me.
I was just talking with somebody last night and we were talking about something about like prioritizing like your schedule and your timing and stuff. And I have a mantra that I can't remember what book I read it in, but I'm sure I read it somewhere, but it was like, if you're saying yes to this, what are you saying no to?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, that like hit me like right in like the perfect spot and the timing that I needed it. Cause I was like, that's so true. Like how many times do we like say yes to something and then later we're like, ooh, like why did I say yes to that? But it creates like that shift where if you are really careful what you say yes to, then you're doing the things that you want to be doing and you're moving yourself in the right direction versus staying stuck and like having that regret or remorse because you said yes to something that you really should have said no to.
Really didn't want to do. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Keasha, I would love for you just to kind of take us through like the journey of your life a little bit. Like take us back to like when you decided you wanted to start your own business and kind of what that process looked like for you.
Okay. Yeah. So I grew up in Virginia, in Charlottesville, Virginia. Right now we're in San Diego, and yeah, born and raised in Charlottesville. And I moved to Northern Virginia to go to school. I initially wanted to pursue some broadcast journalism, but instead, as I got in there, I thought, maybe public relations. Public relations seems to be, that's interesting. I like the case studies. I like the whole idea of the relationships and the being on the scene and being involved and being the voice of. So anyway, I focused on public relations with a degree in communication and ended up working for the world's largest credit union, Navy Federal. I started off in the collections department, but then got promoted because they were hiring within, thank goodness, for public relations role. Like, duh, this is a large credit union. Of course they'd have public relations. So that experience definitely was pretty amazing in that I got to see people at all levels of this large organization. I was in executive meetings, and at this time I'm 24, 25, in executive meetings, working on PR initiatives with branch managers across the country, in the world, actually, being that liaison with organizations in the community, nationally and locally. And I even got my first byline, pitching stories. And so it was overall like a really wonderful experience for me. And while in that role, I did recognize that, it doesn't matter what your role is. It doesn't matter where you're from. I recognize that people truly want to be heard. It's a desire, it's a birthright for us to truly be understood. And that's where the concept of striking statements came, actually, during my role there at Navy Federal. One, the reason being, I was getting kind of bored after about a year and a half. I'd done quite a bit, and I remember looking around at the plaques, the name plates that people have on their desks, and they would have these little circles of years of service. And I remember my mind being blown by seeing somebody with 20 to 25 year, like, wow. I'm like, whoa, you've been here as long as I've been alive. Like, this is crazy.
That's a long
And
time.
it's right. And I'm like, it may be for people, and it's great. It's wonderful that this job does provide something for folks, but it wasn't for me. I knew that for me, I would need something more dynamic, something more Keasha, more creative. And so striking statements in 2006-7 came to be to help others initially celebrate special milestones in unique and striking ways. So what did I do as a new business person? Well, I looked around at the connections I had. I actually got some folks within the headquarters, to be my clients. I had a gentleman who wanted to surprise his wife for their 25-year anniversary. So I coordinated their whole thing, Broadway tickets and transportation from the airport. And it was just my first, getting my feet wet into entrepreneurship and helping people in that way. And it evolved. Obviously. I had my second child. I had my daughter, which I'd already said, she's a teenager now, but I had her my last semester of college. So found out I was pregnant my last semester. And then after a few years at Navy Federal, I became pregnant with my second child, my son. And so I thought, okay, great. I will stay home and focus on growing striking statements, and then their dad can take care of things. I can take care of things with my business. And then who knows? The sky is the limit, right? The galaxy is the limit. Well, as life would have it, things went a bit differently. Things went a bit differently, as it often does. And so I had my son, and he lived for 6 months. He had a rare genetic disorder. And so that was not something that was foreseen prior to him being born. He was born at home, had a beautiful birth at home, and a beautiful experience, a very trying and traumatic experience as well, right? So in those 6 years, I kind of, like what we talked about with this pandemic, life was put into perspective. Things in terms of what's important and what do I want and where are we going. And, still being a fairly young, in my late 20s, mom to 2 kids, knowing that my son's, his lifespan would not be, predicted to be very long. It really gave perspective, and it had me look at life in a different way and my role within the world. So after he passed, I took pause. Quite honestly, I took pause. And thankfully I had a nice savings. I had, I did leave the credit union. That was also my way out, because I'm like, I don't want to stay in this role, but I don't know. I'm going to go without salary. I don't know what I would do. Maybe this maternity leave could be I leave and not come back, and then we'll see. So that's basically what I did. But thankfully I was pretty set up with 5 years tenure there, and I took a pause. And during that time, I did discover Twitter, and Facebook later, because it was about 2009 when I actually joined Facebook, was in 2009 personally. But Twitter especially, I'm like, this is wild how creative people are monetizing their genius and doing business in life on their terms. They're creating these job paths or career paths that they get to create, and it's working. And so with that exposure, I decided to take striking statements to a place of helping other entrepreneurs, not with the special, or people in general. It started with people in general, but after this exposure to technology and Twitter, I decided to help people in business who did not necessarily have the capability of conveying what they did and who they helped in a clear way. And so I thought, that's how I'll help people continue to make striking statements in the way that they show up and help others. Yeah.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us. I know everybody has different stories, right?
Yes.
I had a similar but different story, like with that moment with life and when I lost my mom. And we learned so much about ourselves going through that process and figuring out like how we're going to move forward and like one of the things that I often hear in my head, I think more than anything, is like, life is short. Like, we never know how much time we're given with, here on earth ourselves or with our loved ones, and just, being able to make an impact and to do things that feel good to us and are like the right way for us to move forward. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's one of those things where you're like, okay, these are the moments that make a difference, and we can, we get to choose how we move forward. And luckily for us, like, we have that ability to, like, I don't even know where I'm trying to go with this. Like, I just want to honor you. Thank you for sharing that with us. It's one of those things, like, it's as a mom and just as a human, like, it's so, life it impacts us in so many different ways. So I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm just talking. I'm like, I just wanted to honor you for a second. And I don't even know what I'm saying. My words are not coming out right, but it's so important that we learn from those lessons, and like, we take heart in them, and we move our businesses forward from there. And so you're making striking statements in such a beautiful way.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. And, as we evolve and we continue to grow, can I share a little bit more about, just because I love to finish this bit about my son and honor him as well. So his name was Gabriel. And he lived in 2008, his lifespan was in 2008. And I signed up with a coaching program about 4 years later, 5 years, when I was in my first like big investment of this coaching program. Now, prior to that, I realized that it was a couple years though. I'm not a religious person, so I didn't know about the Archangel Gabriel, and I'm not sure if your audience know, but we did name him that because his father's he was my ex-mother-in-law's favorite archangel. And I knew that when we named him. I'm like, that's a beautiful name. I love it. Well, it wasn't until 2 years later that I realized that Gabriel is the archangel of communication. He's the messenger angel.
Oh my gosh. That just gave me chills. Like, yeah. Wow. Gabriel. Yeah. And then, like, your legacy that you're leading, like, totally ties back to him, which is such a beautiful connection and a way to, like, carry him and his memory with you and the work that you do.
Right. And I thought, wow, isn't that something special? I know he's special. Knowing that piece, yeah, amazing. And so I ended up incorporating a story around that with that coaching program. So that's how I tie that in. But prior to that, I did not talk about it because I thought, well, that's mine, and he's in my heart to keep. And unless there's something around specific to that, then there's no need for anybody to really know. But in healing and being able to, grow from those experiences and see the love and keep the love with you, love with you, you're able to move forward. And yeah, I have this beautiful story that I can talk about, at this point pretty freely. So yeah, so then we can, continue to talk about striking statements.
Yeah, and it's so good. It reminds me, there's a quote by Brene Brown that says to share from the scar, not from the wound. And from what you just said, like, it resonates with me. Like, after I lost my mom in a car accident, like, I couldn't talk about it for a long time. And I'm at a place now where I do talk about it as part of my story, and a part of, like, it was during that time for me that I really realized how short life is. And, like, I was working retail management prior to starting my business, and I loved the work that I did, but I was working crazy hours. I was exhausted. I wasn't home as much as I wanted to be. Like, my schedule changed so much. And I just had that, like, feeling in my gut, like, this is not the way that I'm supposed to be living my life. Like, I need to do something different. And I don't know how long I would have stayed in that cycle of, like, knowing I was meant for more and knowing I could have done something different. If I wouldn't have gone through that experience, I'm sure something else eventually would have happened. Like, that would have been, like, a way easier way to have learned my lesson, but that wasn't what I was given. And it was during that time, like, going through that grieving process after I lost my mom that I was like, all right, like you have to do something different, Darlene. Like if I continue on this path, I'm not happy. I'm not like doing work, like I'm doing work and supporting like my employees and my clients and stuff in a loving way. And I loved what I did, but it wasn't lighting me up. It wasn't like my sole purpose. And so when I found coaching a couple years after that, I was like, this is totally my jam. This is what I love to do. This is how I've always been supporting. Like my friends in high school would always come to me for support. Like people were always reaching out and I was like, oh, I'm a coach. I didn't even know coaching was a thing.
Right.
But so when I found it and, went through training and different things like that, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm like, you can get paid to do work that you love. Like, hello, why don't people know this? And so it was because of that time that I was grieving that I was like, I knew I needed to do something different. And that was when like it propelled me to leave what I was doing before and start my own business. And thank goodness. And that was back in 2007. So we started not too far apart on that journey of like coaching and finding out that we can support people in this entrepreneurial spirited way.
Exactly. Isn't that cool?
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about the work that you do. Like what is it that your company does and how do you support your clients?
Yeah. So my company is a brand messaging and strategy. We provide brand messaging and strategy as well as messaging mentorship. So I work with, entrepreneurs, creatives, consultants to help them, particularly when they're in the phase of they've evolved. There's been a pivot, a shift in what they're doing and how they want to show up. And so I'm helping them to gain the clarity to look at their mission, their values, their story, which parts of it give validation to their mission, even to redefine who the people are that they want to work with. Because as we evolve, so do the people we work with too. So it's about doing a overall revamp of those things and providing messaging that I call striking statements. And striking statements are essentially, it's when you have the words that get you noticed, remembered, and paid. That's what a striking statement does. And with my embody your message, the concept of embodying your message, I have a course around embodying your message and I created a masterclass around it. It's about three components, three areas of where we need to upgrade to be able to truly have this messaging that has resonance and that will consistently attract the right opportunities and the right people to you. It really lies within your ability to upgrade your mentality, your mindset, your self-image. And by doing the two of those, your messaging will shift because it's the energy. Everything is energy. And truly embodying your message means that your messaging is a reflection of not what you think sounds good, not the things that touch on the little parts of you, but it's truly a reflection of the essence of who you are being in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes it takes like that pulling back the layers a little bit and really getting to know yourself even better before you can encompass that. I know a lot with my clients, like sometimes we have to dig deep because sometimes I think I don't know, I kind of feel like sometimes like we're trained as a society to like wear this mask and like be who people expect us to be and like who we should be. We were told we should be, not necessarily who we should be. But those things, like those messages come up for so many people. And I know I struggled with that big time. Like when I started my business back in 2007, like the first 2 years, I was watching what everybody else was doing and trying to not necessarily copy what they were doing, but emulate and to a degree, like, oh, like we should wear a business suit and we should carry a briefcase and we should introduce ourselves like this. And I never got really clear in my messaging. And it was like that, like 2 years in a business when I had that, I call it like a come into Jesus moment where I like broke down and I was like, what the heck am I doing? Like, I'm like making all these amazing friends and all these contacts and I'm networking and like everybody loves me, but nobody wants to pay me. Like, what am I doing wrong? Like, what is wrong with my messaging? And it was during that time when I like journaled my heart out and like I really dug deep and like got clearer for myself. Like, oh, like I'm trying to talk to everybody, which
Mm-hmm.
in turn is talking to nobody because nobody was really listening or hearing what I was saying.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people I talk to are struggling with those, not necessarily the exact same story, but they're not connecting with their people. They're not, really getting clear with who they want to work with and what's unique about them, and sharing their experiences and their skill sets and their stories. Like
Mm-hmm.
that was something that I felt like, and it still comes up when I'm talking to people. Like people are like, I kind of want to hide behind my mask a little bit. Like you can see a little bit of me, but not all of me.
Right.
um,
Yeah. Yeah, I've totally, for me as well, when I left the corporate world as Keasha, the public relations manager, and started to network as Keasha, business owner, striking statements, because I didn't have that clarity or that conviction in myself of knowing who I was. And it is a process. And that's why, my clients are typically in that 5 year and above place of being in business, not brand new, because there is a process of getting to that point where, again, with all the variables in business and especially in entrepreneurship, right? It's a wild ride. One thing is inevitable. It's your evolution to your next level. And so, to get to the place where you're like, okay, I've done enough of the work with people. I know what works for me. I know clearer in terms of who I am and who I would like to work with and how I want to be. But yeah, going back to what I was starting to say, when I first started networking as a business owner, I let people tell me what I could do, like, sure, I was on Twitter. Like I said, I love Twitter and stuff. Oh, so you can help with my social media management? Oh, okay. All right, sure, let's try it. So it is definitely a process, but once you're knowing the things that are for you and not for you, where you shine the brightest, where that ease and that genius zone is for you, then it's just a matter of formulating the transformation, like being able to tell people, this is what I can help you with. I see you, I know where you are, and I can show you what's available for you on the other side.
yeah, it's so true. And it makes me laugh because I'm like, yeah, so many people would be like, oh, can you help me with, I mean, I remember when I first started, one of the people that I guess was a client, it wasn't like a coaching client. Like I thought it was going to be a coaching relationship. And then I ended up doing like bookkeeping and different things with them in the beginning. And I'm like, wait, this isn't even what I do. How did I like somehow say yes to this? And like, I'm like, this isn't what I'm doing. This isn't what I'm like want to be great at, and like what I am great at even. Like, so I think it's funny, but you're right. Like, especially in the beginning, like, and I think it's okay too. Like when you're first starting your business, like you're getting your feet wet a little bit. You're like testing things out. You're like, what do I want to do? Like, how does this work? What type of people do I want to work with? So I almost like, even though those first 2 years of my business didn't go as I would have hoped, like I'm kind of glad that was my start, because it's great for story.
Yep.
like I didn't have my stuff together. Um, but I learned so much about myself during that time. I learned what I liked, what I didn't like, the types of clients I loved working with, which ones I was like, ooh, put these on the list of like, definitely not a good fit.
Stay away.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So also along those lines of like stay away, and what you were saying, like you were talking to everybody because like, hey, you don't know what you don't know. When you were looking at the people who were doing the things that looked like obviously it was working for them. So why not try on some of this of what they're
Yeah.
doing? And even now, even more so now, with so much of our lives being online in some capacity, using social media, it's easy to be seduced into believing that you have to talk about the same things, or that it's better. Yeah, let's talk about what they're talking about. Let's do the things that they're doing, because hey, it's working for them, without us really understanding that not everything's going to work for everyone. And I think a big part of people who are afraid to show up, I feel like there's two parts. There's people who are afraid to be seen, and there's people who are afraid to not be seen. Right? The
Yeah.
FOMO people, their fear of missing out. Oh my God, I need to do a reel. I need to be on Clubhouse. Not that there's anything wrong with any of these things, but for one, when you're trying to do all the things, just to keep up with what's trendy, what's hot, you're not really tuning in to who you are. What do you really, what's really for you? And looking at where your audiences are, like what makes sense for where they're showing up. Taking, like, recognizing those two of many factors, but those biggest factors will make a big impact on, you know, how you show up
Yeah.
and why, and your reasons behind it, your intentions
Yeah.
behind that, your motivators for that.
Yeah. I'm so glad you mentioned that because it's so true. Like you have to figure out, especially when it comes to how you're showing up in social media, like you need to figure out where you like to show up and what you like to do. But then you also have to be like, well, okay, if I like say it's Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn or Clubhouse, like are my people actually there too though? Because you can show up there all day long, but if you're not talking to your ideal clients, like it's not going to support you in the right way. Or if you don't enjoy doing something and you're trying to do it anyways, like your audience is going to see that and not connect as much with you in that space as well. So yeah, it's one of those things, like it's all trial and error though in the beginning too. Like you're like, let's try a couple of things, see what sticks. Which things do I like doing? Like I remember when I first started doing videos, like at first I was like, I didn't do them forever because that little red light when it's staring at you when you hit record, like for some reason my mind would go to mush and I'm like, what am I supposed to say now? Like I know I have good things to say, but they would like all disappear for whatever reason. And so I had to like start slow and like started doing Facebook lives in a group where there wasn't tons of people. And I'm like, okay, like I survived. Nobody even watched it yet. Good. The algorithm was working in my favor that day. And then like, as you get more comfortable, and now I don't mind it at all. I mean, I get like, I have my moments where I'm like, I don't want to do my hair or do my makeup or like do the video, but it's not as scary as it was. So I think it's like that piece of like, I need to be visible, I need to be seen, but finding ways that are really comfortable for you. And just because somebody in your industry is doing videos or writing blog posts or creating a podcast or whatever, like there's so many things nowadays, right? Like whatever they're doing, like you don't have to do it just because they're doing it. You could do it because you want to and it excites you and like you love it. But finding things that, like there's so many ways to market your business. You don't have to do all the things. You just have to do like 5 of them, 10 of them, and find ones that you love and that are working for you and test and measure and tweak it a little bit until you find like that rhythm that really works for you. But it's so funny because so many people are always like, oh, well, this influencer is doing this, so I have to go out and do it. And then it doesn't work for them. And what they don't even know what's happening on the backside just because, I don't know.
Whole thing. You don't see the whole story. You don't see all that's happened or how long or their trial and errors either.
And they're not always as successful as they look from like the vanity matrix of it too. Like being in the online space now for so long, like I know a lot of different influencers or different people. And some of the people that I always thought were like crazy up there, like, oh, you're not making millions? Like you would think like when you look at it, you're like, wow. And then when you really get into the numbers and see what's going on, like they're spending their whole entire budget was, paid back into Facebook ads or like those different things. So yeah, it's so interesting to like watch the online space and see like, okay, like that's working for them. But like when you know more, like you're like, oh, but they're not actually making this, or maybe some of them are. And I know tons of business owners who are making, 6 figures and higher. And like they have tiny email lists and they have, 400 ideal clients in their Facebook group, not 20,000. And they're still creating and attracting the right clients into them.
Right. Yes. And that's the point about attracting the right people. And it's fun. It helps with ego to have those vanity metrics. But, I look at Instagram for definitely having fun when I've actually taken the pressure off to really look like, my coach, she said, okay, so where do you get your folks? Like, where do clients come from? And I'm like, oh gosh, referrals, networking, now it's Zoom, some things in person, but of course it was networking in person previously, but still works. Referrals, Facebook, And then, Instagram. And I told her, she's like, well, how many clients have you gotten from Instagram? Let's just say. And I'm like, gosh, not a whole lot, not a whole lot of customers. What I have gotten through Instagram specifically is gotten to know really great collaborators and friends who we can do some things together with, but not a whole lot of clients per se, more so from Facebook I have. And she was like, okay, well, once I identified my superpower, which is networking, I can go to a networking event and visit, like literally visit as a guest and get a client.
Yeah.
That's happened on many occasions for me. And so knowing that I can be more intentional in those spaces where it's not, it doesn't have anything to do with social media. It's like, you're right. There's so many different ways of interacting and being seen and getting in front of the right people that many times we do forget, because again, social media is this big thing to some, to most people, not to everybody. But when you're in it, you think, oh my gosh, if I'm not doing this or that, then oh Lord. But it's just to take it easy, and to the work is to discover, to find out what is good for you and to have fun. So now on Instagram, I do see it as more have fun, no pressure. I'll share things, but I know I really love the engagement, and I do have good engagement in terms of the conversations and connections with people. And so I use that for what it is, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love that you share that too, because like a lot of times when we're looking at like a strategy, like, okay, Instagram, like I'm going to go in there and I'm going to get some clients, I'm going to make some money. And that's the wrong way to look at it, right? Like when you go into it and you're just having fun and you're showing up and being generous and kind and collaborating and connecting and like
Mhm.
responding to people's posts, like that's usually, at least in my experience, where the business comes from. But when I go into a group and I'm like, all right, I need a client, like, and you like go in with that, like, what's the right word? Like that hunger almost, like, and like the desperation. Like you can smell, it's like dating, right? You can smell the desperation. um, but so I think it's so important, like what you shared, like when you just go into it for fun and you're just having fun with it and building relationships, like that's the gold. That's where you can really thrive and make a difference.
Yeah.
And that's where I think so many people get it wrong. Like when I, like some of my newer clients sometimes are like, I'm going into all these groups and I'm doing all these things and I'm posting my offers and I'm, commenting on everybody's things, but they're like, they're hungry for it. And I was like, all right, let's shift that perspective for a minute. Like, just go in and have fun. Just engage with people. Be what, like a nice human being. And
Yeah.
like don't respond to things that are only about your industry. Like respond to somebody who needs help over here about like how to create a email funnel, or go over here and talk about mom life and like how you managed helping your daughter or something like that. Like talk about those types of things and people are going to get curious. They're going to be like, oh, like you're amazing, like you're so helpful. And they click over to your profile and like, oh, this is what you do. And then they start to like, then somebody asks for something, to like, oh, so and so does that, like let me connect you. Like that's how I feel like you can really make a big difference when it comes to community and social media. It's like that nurturing piece to it.
Mm-hmm.
So
Absolutely. I agree.
um before we're going to wrap up in just a couple minutes and we'll go to rapid fire, but before I go there, I'd love to hear, can you tell us what has been like one of the biggest things you've had to overcome in your business?
Yeah. The biggest thing to overcome is my mindset, the thing, sensitivity, and taking things personally, and then being hard on myself. Those, and again, it goes to my mentality. That's been the biggest thing to overcome, because it's everything. And it can, if you're a sensitive person, if you're a feeling person, if you love people, if I don't take shit, but you there can be certain circumstances where you're let down, okay? Because not maybe, definitely, not everyone has the same level of integrity or does business the same. And so when you're disappointed or things don't work out as you'd hoped, that can be hurtful. But to know that as long as you know yourself and you're doing the right things and staying in keeping your word to yourself, then that's all you can do. And just know that, I know Richard Branson said this, and I always remember this. He said, opportunities are like standing at the bus stop waiting for a bus to come. You know, they have their schedule. You miss one, it's okay. Another one's going to come up in like 15 minutes. You know, you could use the bus stop, you could use the subway station, whatever. The point is that there will be another one, that there will be another opportunity. It's a matter of your awareness, your awareness of self, and being discerning and being open. So discerning, self-awareness, and having an openness of heart. That's what I have learned. That's what I have learned. And that's led to, you know, just not taking things personally and or too personally, and continuing to move forward and know it's not about them or that. People can love you or hate you. It's not your business. It's not your business. Your business is to focus on how you're being, and your self-image, how you're looking at yourself, how you're showing up for yourself and your loved ones. What kind of person are you being? And is it a match? You know, what kind of leader are you being? Is it a match to your actions and your thoughts?
Yeah. So good. I love that so much. And you're so right. Like, and it's like that value piece to it, like knowing what your values are and how you want to show up. Like, you're going to attract the people that have similar values and are the right people. And, and you're not going to be everybody's cup of tea, right? Which is totally fine.
That's cool.
I could never work with everybody in the whole wide world, even though I tried to when I first started my business. Like, I can't serve millions of people. I can only serve the right ones that are at the right time in the right place for me. So, so true. All right. We're going to have some fun real quick. I love to do rapid fire questions with my guests just to kind of get to know you a little bit better.
Okay.
I'm super curious. Are you binge watching anything on TV right now?
Oh, well, I'm looking forward to Ozark coming out, the latest season on the 27th of this month. I'm so excited. I love Ozark.
But I know it's coming already though, so you just gave me an update.
Oh, so yeah, this month, baby.
I love that one.
This month. My husband and I are currently watching Ginny and Georgia and Ginny. So that's like a kind of a wholesome show with a little edge to it. That's on Netflix.
Yeah, I actually just finished that one not last night, the night before.
Oh, okay.
So it was good, and I heard they're going to make a season 2. So
okay,
who knows when, because they haven't even started filming. But that's a good one. It's a good one. I like it.
Yeah. And in terms, I can't think of anything else that I am binging. I still love to watch This Is Us. But yeah, that's pretty much.
That's ones. We could curl up on the couch together. I like all those.
Yeah.
What are you reading right now? Do you have a book that you're into?
Yes, I am. I am reading a book called More Than Enough, and it is written by Elaine Welterworth. She was the youngest and the first Black editor-in-chief of a large publication like Condé Nast. She was appointed by Anna Wintour at the age of 30 to be editor-in-chief of Vogue and Teen Vogue. And I have seen her on social media. She's amazing. She's got amazing hair. My hair is pretty tame today. Sometimes, I can make it even bigger with my afro, but no, she's got wonderful hair and she's inspiring. And her book tells the story of her growing up. It's part memoir and inspiration and truth and realness and a roadmap for girls who have been told in whatever kinds of ways, from family, from society, that you're not enough. And that's why it's called More Than Enough.
More Than Enough. Oh, I love that. I wrote the title down. I'm gonna have to get it. It sounds amazing.
Yeah.
You're welcome. And, do you have a morning routine? Are you somebody who has kind of like a morning, not necessarily ritual, but like certain things that you do?
Yeah. I'll get up. I'll have some lemon water. I will light my incense and go and meditate or do some yoga. One comes before the other, or maybe I'll just make some coffee first before getting into that. So it's always get up, water, time for just quiet with my incense and just chill, and then some kind of movement. And then I get into my day after for me, I wake up at about 6:30 every morning, but I'm not really ready to work until about 9,
Yep.
9, 10. Huh?
I said I'm totally with you on that. Like
Yeah.
I used to start my mornings like is there like work stuff like 8:30, and I'm like, why am I doing this? I'm like 9:30 or 10 feels way better.
It's
So
way better, way better. It's like, don't ask me too many questions at, 8, like, don't do that. But yeah, so that's what I like to do.
and you're more at least I'm more productive when I start at 9:30 or 10 versus when I try to start earlier, because my brain just needs more time in the morning to like it's a nice slow morning is what I call it.
And you know what I've learned through the years in business and in life? Don't force it. Don't force anything.
Yeah.
The more that you do when you know your heart's not in it, when you know you're not, it's just going to continue just to create this rub, this friction, and you're not going to move anywhere. You're going to be stagnant. So how you do anything is how you do everything. I do believe that. It took me a while to subscribe to that. I'm like, I don't know about that. I don't know. But I read T. Harv Eker. If you've ever read Secret of the Millionaire Mind, he's great. I worked for a company that it's called Success Resources, where they did do programs based around his stuff.
Yeah.
And so when I worked there to overhaul their content, it really sunk in. That concept of how you do anything is how you do everything really did land differently with me at that point in time. And I'm like, oh yeah, there are nuggets in terms of how you do this thing over here that's going to impact how you do this thing over here. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's how I feel about like exercise when I'm adding exercise into my routine, like it makes everything else better. But
Yeah.
when I don't, like I notice like other areas of my life feel like they're not like as complete or something. I don't know. But that's what it made me think of when you said that.
Yeah.
So yeah. All right. And if you had to name one person, who would you say has made the biggest impact on your life?
My grandmother. My grandmother, Debbie, we would call her. Yeah, I think about that woman every day. She's around me very much, and I didn't realize until, I became an adult, and even now how influential. Um, I had some paperwork, some of the files, because she passed at 92 from natural causes, and which was great. I'm like, yay. I mean, not yay that she passed, but like, wow, full life, long life. And yeah, no illness. My mom had some files of hers, and I remember looking through some and seeing headlines in the local paper about her returning to school to learn how to read at 74 years old.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
she had she had about a 6th grade education. And being a Black woman who grew up in the South, she well, that wasn't unusual, and she went to work, but she was such a freaking trailblazer. Like, she waited to have kids until her late 20s, which again, in the 40s, 50s, that's pretty late, given the time. She drove, she had her own car, she ended up getting property that was passed from her father. So they lived, like, her and her husband, and the family that they had was in her house, and the house that came from her family that she took care of, that she built, that she added on to, made renovations to. I remember her in the 80s, late 80s, soda cans. She'd be like, okay, rinse it out. I remember when we drank soda, we'd rinse it out, she'd dry it and then step on it so she could go recycle it. She was recycling. Okay, yeah, she got like 10 cents or something, for collecting. But she would be very avid about getting exercise. And as I think about all of these little nuggets and pieces of her personality and resiliency and tenacity, and she loved people. She loved animals and people. And well-behaved children, but they had to be well-behaved. So, but the warmth and how people in the community knew her, and my grandfather, and how she was a real pillar in the community, in the family, and all those cool things about her. It's just,
Yeah,
she made a big impact.
you're warm in my heart, and I'm sure it's warm in hers. So I love, especially when it's like family members who are so amazing and like clearly the people in our lives that have made like that huge impact. Like,
Yeah.
it's so cool.
Yeah.
And where is your happy spot? If you need to reset, recharge, where do you go? What do you like to do?
I have a pretty cute garden, so that's fun to get outside. And also I'll journal. So it's really comes down to two things. Three. I'll either journal, I'll rest, take a nap, or pull my I have oracle decks. I'll pull cards from my decks. And those are the things that bring me back to center, make me feel like if I'm feeling off or sad or mad or just, I will do that.
It shakes that funkiness off, right?
Take the funkiness off. Exactly.
We all need that. Those are some of the things that I like to do too. That, and like even just going outside in nature sometimes and like standing in the grass, like being barefoot, like just like I'm like, I feel so grounded with that. And then my happy spot's the ocean though. If I can just be by water and go to the beach, I'm like, thank goodness we live in Southern California. It's not too far.
No, I did not mention that. That's like such a spiritual thing. Like it feels it's the ocean and the beach is really a powerful and grounding place. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I have just one last question for you. And I cannot do it today, and I wish I could. But if I could give you a plane ticket and you could go anywhere in the world, where would you go and why?
Oh my gosh. Right now, where would I want to go? I think I would go to gosh, I don't know. South America. Where would I go? Or Central America. I went to Belize late last year and it was beautiful. It was a wonderful place. But you know what? I'm going to change that. Perhaps I'll go to Fiji. If you give me a plane ticket anywhere, I'll go to Fiji. It's beautiful. The people are, I haven't been, nice. There's yummy, clean, fresh food, and there's culture and rainforests and beautiful water. So I think I go there. Yeah.
I love that you got to go to Belize last year. That's like the number one place that it's like I want to go to right now is Belize. I've wanted to go there for a couple of years, but it's still like the top. I'm like, it's up there and like Bali. Like
Yeah.
amazing too.
Yeah. Belize is amazing.
You'll have to tell me stories one day about that because it's definitely on my bucket list.
All right.
Keasha, this has been so much fun. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast and sharing your story and so much your heart with us today. I know people are going to want to connect with you. Where should they go? Where do you like to hang out?
Yeah, so I love to hang out on Instagram, and you can find me at Striking Statements. My website is also strikingstatements.com. I'm actually doing a rebrand this month, so I'm not sure when this is published, but by the end of March, there'll be a brand spanking new strikingstatements.com. But yeah, Instagram. I have a lovely Facebook group called Master Your Message, where we have some great conversations in there, and there's tips about how to improve messaging, and there's a bit about manifesting and mindset in there too. So that's another place. Yeah.
Awesome. And I know you have a free gift for everybody as well. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, my freebie is called How to Make an Intro That Impacts. So you have 3 different templates provided that you can utilize to really wow people without being too wordy. And that's something that no matter how long you've been in business, when you get in scenarios where people ask that inevitable question, so what do you do? You're like, oh shit, what do I keep? What do I leave out? Or so that 30, 3 ways to make an intro that impacts is what your guests or your listeners can download for free.
And it's so needed because we've all been at the networking event where you ask somebody that question and they just vomit all kinds of words at you. And you're like, okay, cool, thanks, bye.
Exactly.
I have no clue what you just said, but okay, cool.
Right.
So it's all about that amazing messaging. So yeah. Thank you, Keasha, so much for being here. It's been such an honor to hear your story.
And thank you for having me.
You're so welcome. All right, everybody, that's a wrap for this episode. We'll see you back here next week. Make it an amazing day.